Nigerian vegan kitchens, vegan pies. We're going to start by making the pie crust or the pastry encasement, and you're going to need flour, baking soda, salt, a pinch of sugar and vegan butter for this. If you don't have access to vegan butter, then you can use refined coconut oil in its solid form. So like put it in the fridge if you live in Nigeria where it's hot and it's more likely to melt. Make sure it's solid, and then you just want to combine that with your hands. Then add some milk. Since we're not using eggs, you want to use milk just to be that liquid to better combine the pastry. Then you're going to flour your surface and then add in your pastry or your dough to the table. And then I added in a bit too much milk, so be careful when you're adding in your milk, but the lovely thing about pastries is you can correct it. So I've added in a bit of extra flour. Then you want to have this nice ball of dough. Don't overwork it because it will activate the gluten and become stiff and more bread-like instead of having that flaky, nice crust. So after you've kneaded it, then just leave it to rest and prep your vegetables. I've used potatoes, carrots, Tatashe or bell pepper, Scotch bonnets, as well as onions. These are the classic veggies used for making Nigerian meat pie. You can play around with it if you want to, but these are traditionally the vegetables that you'll find in a normal like Nigerian meat pie. So these are the ones that I've used. For the meat substitute, I'm using rehydrated soy protein. And you can find this at most of your local Whole Foods stores, or even many supermarkets these days are doing them. So if you have access to that, use that. And then I've just fried up my Scotch bonnets and onions because Scotch bonnet will burn your mouth if you don't cook it properly. And then added in my vegetables and my soy protein. Now you don't want to fry this until it's completely dry and all the juice and moisture has left, but you want to leave some moisture just because it's going to cook in the oven, and you want to give it that nice tender feeling once it's cooking in the pastry in the oven. Then I've just seasoned this with some salt, thyme and garlic powder. You can play around with the seasonings if you want, but I just think the nice flaky crust and minimal season works really well. Then afterwards, I have just gotten my dough after it's rested for a bit, and I've finished cooking and prepping all my veggies and my filling. Then I've just cut this into 8 pieces, and then this way it's just easier to roll out instead of working with big batches of dough or with a large, huge batch of dough. You just want to roll it out until it's smooth and thin. You don't want it to be paper thin that you can start to see through the dough a bit, but you also don't want it to be too thick. So you're looking at like just under half of a centimeter in width. And then use a bowl to create a circle which will form the pie crust. Then you're just going to line a baking tray and add in your filling. Less is more when it comes to filling. This is a lesson that I learned the hard way. I've made very ugly pies in the past because you just want to stuff it to the brim, but you don't need to. So I've only used about 1 teaspoon for the bowl size that I used. And then you're just going to press that down and indent it with a fork to seal the pie crust together and to finalize the encasement of the filling. Then you just repeat the process. And all the extra trimmings that you get rid of, don't throw them away, because you can just remold them and re-roll them out and use them to make extra pies. Like, don't waste your dough. Then you're just going to create these indentations because again, they let out steam, but they also are aesthetically pleasing. And then instead of egg wash that you would traditionally use over your pies, I've used melted butter. Again, you can use coconut oil. And please don't ask me why I'm using a spoon to do egg wash, but I don't know why I just didn't use a brush, but yeah. Then you're just going to pop these in the oven. But wait a minute. I'm also going to show you how to make this accessible for those of you that don't have access to soy protein. You can also make this with green lentils, which is so accessible. You can find it more easily than you can find vegan mince in Nigeria. And so you're just going to repeat the exact same steps, but this time you will be boiling green lentils before and using this in replacement of the vegan mince. This is healthier, I guess, in many ways, because you're just eating natural green lentils. So boil them for like 10 minutes before adding them to the frying pan, and then season them and fry them with your veggies, and then encase them in the dough as we did for the soy protein mince pies. All the same steps, literally just repeat all of them, but for this. And then you're going to cook them in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes, depending on your oven and your heat, on about 180 to 200 degrees Celsius. You know when they're done, when they're flaky and crusty on the outside. And I love meat pies. Like, they're honestly a childhood favorite of mine, and like they're one of those things that taste even better when you reheat them. So there's no reason for you to be missing out. Try this version of my meat pies and I know you will love it. Thank you for watching this video. We'll see you in the next one.